Yo, what's up? We're live. Welcome to the show. We got an emergency broadcast here. I'm going to bring up my screen so that you don't have to look at me the whole time. What is up in the chat? Let's get the screen shared here. Nope, that looks really bad. What about this? Yeah, I like this one. All right, so I got myself shrunk down in the corner. Welcome. It's good to have you guys. We are not at our normal broadcasting time. This is a different time. This is a more important time, I would argue. A lot has dropped in the last couple of days about SEC, and now we have a executive order that's going to hit in the next couple of weeks from Biden. And so I want to talk about all this, right? Because once again, this is affecting cryptocurrency. This is affecting all of us, right? So that's what we're going to chat about today. Welcome. Say what's up in the chat. Yeah, this is a free email, by the way. We're 43 emails in. It's just bullrunforever.substack.com, completely free. I know everyone's got a fucking Substack now in 2021 and 2022, but I don't even know if mine is worth it. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't know. Maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't. I just kind of talk about what I think is important. Some emails are really, really long. Some have TA, some have fundamental stuff, some don't. I don't know. So check it out if you want. Otherwise, I don't care. All right. Yeah. So I got that on this screen. So let's dive in. So before we talk about what's in front of us, we need to take a step back, right? Because what I think people, it's become clear over the last couple of years, but I think people are still missing this, is that words in their meaning are very important, right? Words can persuade, words can manipulate, words can motivate, words can inspire, stories can inspire, right? So a story is just a string of words, a string of sentences that's said in a way that gets you to feel a certain way, right? And this is happening day in and day out. Good, bad, everything in between, right? A full range of spectrum of words are being thrown at you all day long. And it's like now we're on this kick about misinformation, information, who's trustworthy, who's not, credible source. You got all the names of these TV shows from these news networks that essentially their job is to push propaganda. Their job is to push you into thinking a certain way. All of this will become relevant here in just a couple of minutes, so bear with me. But the point is that, you know, words said the wrong way are really, really dangerous. I remember when I first got into internet marketing, one of the big things that I was huge into, digital marketing, whatever you want to call it. That's what we called it back in the day when there was like 2 or 3 web forums that existed and nothing else. But back then I was obsessed with copywriting because I realized, oh, okay, that's how we can get more conversions, because I need to get better at telling the story. And it takes you down this rabbit hole. And the rabbit hole is like well beyond like what are those books by Robert Greene, like the 48 Laws of Power and the 50 Rules of this and 20 Rules of that. Like all of those books talk about really, really important things because they talk about how to persuade people, how to motivate people, inspire people, but they also talk about how to manipulate people. So words are really, really important. There's actually a book that I've got that it's on my shelf so that I can literally just rub it in everyone's face. I don't think I've read it all the way through, but it's called The Trivium. And The Trivium is like this 3-part way that they used to teach in schools. They used to teach linguistics in schools a really, really long time ago, like just before the 19th century. And so the reason why that matters is because, you know, nowadays the definitions of words is constantly changing. So it's like I could throw any word out there or any statement out there. Like I could ask you a question, do you believe in God? But you can't even really answer that until we've both defined what is God to you and, you know, what aspect or what thing or, you know, what entity you believe in, right? So by me even asking you that question, it's a trap to a degree because nobody's clearly identified what the definitions are. And if you notice in the legal world and in the I don't know what I'm looking for here, but in the rule of law, word matters most. So this is why you're constantly seeing innocent people be found guilty for things they didn't do, and guilty people be found innocent for things that they did do. And the reason why is because under the legal system, it's an entirely different thing, and it's based upon the wording and the definitions of everyone involved, right? So anyways, I say all that because the thing that's really concerning about stuff like this is, first off, they make it to where it's really big and bloated so that you're less likely to read it. Like this new bit by the SEC is 654 pages. It is right here. We're going to talk about this. This is a proposed change to what's called ATSs, or alternate trade. What is this called? Alternate trade somethings? Doesn't matter. I forgot what it was. I think I put it in the post, didn't I? Alternative trading systems. Yeah, there you go. ATSs. And so this is what we've been talking about. I was actually digging up thumbnails because I was going to create this thumbnail, which is awful, by the way. You guys should like this video so that more people see it, because that thumbnail is hideous. And what I was looking at is the last time we talked about this, which I think was October, and said that this was coming down the pipe. And then you had a couple more hearings, and then you didn't really hear much about it. And then now, poof, here we go. And so we had two things like hit in the last day, which is Biden is going to do some sort of executive order in the next couple of weeks, and it's going to be framed as national security. And then you have the SEC, which is going to rewrite some rules, right? And so there's two pieces that were just released. There's this Commissioner Pierce, and then there's the actual 654-page report itself. So the overall issue is that the cryptocurrency space is just such a wild, wild west still. There's no real unity there, right? There's not like a band of people who, yes, this is a centralized force, but help the greater good, or like, I guess you could say, the good guys in all of this. It's just a bunch of lone bandits out, and sometimes the interests align, but most of the time it doesn't. And the issue with that is that it's expensive to ensure that a space like the cryptocurrency space stays what we all want it to be, why we all got involved. And so right now, I don't really see that happening with how the space is, and everyone's against each other. There's really no centralized force. I mean, Jack Dorsey's new thing that he just created, what was that, like a legal fund for Bitcoin developers? I think that's like the most interesting thing that you got going for you in the space. A lot of it is just regular people who got rich, who now think that they're going to be able to keep all that money and live off grid or whatever, and that they're completely unplugged and don't give a fuck about what's going on. And you got a very small group of people who do, but like I said, it's still way too fragmented, right? And so decentralized, centralized, they've all got their place, right? So sometimes a centralized structure within a much bigger decentralized system does work, right? So anyways, going back to it is, in a nutshell, what they're trying to do is what we talked about before, is they're trying to find some sort of angle to rope in DeFi, to rope in stable coins, to rope in AMAs, to rope in AMMs, to rope in everything. Etherscan, Block Explorer, every little piece that acts as a part of the transaction is going to be roped into this general regulation. And so they've made it clear now what they want to do. So under the ATS, and of course, they're not mentioning crypto at all. They're not mentioning DeFi. They're not mentioning any of this. But they're passing these changes now so that they can just very easily say, because what's going to happen is they're going to pass this ATS first, these ATS changes, okay? And then that's going to put them in a position to then, after somebody else comes along and defines them all as securities, which maybe that'll be the executive order. So first we do the ATS changes. The executive order comes along and says everything's a security. Now everything that's just been made a security fits inside this model. You get it? So it's a very simple process. I don't know how people don't see this. They don't get it, right? They're like, oh, no. It's not that, or they can't put together these pieces. But to me, it's like really, really obvious, right? Anyways, we've been covering this really, really extensively over the last year. Essentially that's what's going to happen, is they want to make changes to this. And I've made it real simple for you in case you don't want to read this 654-page report. This summary is all we really need to look at, because it's the wording of that. So that's why I started this stream talking about the wording, because the linguistics matter. Who is identified as each thing? What is the identification of each thing, each word as it's being used in these sentences? And this is what they never really tell you. And it's up to you to go and dig up yourself, because you'll interpret this completely different. All right, so bold sections, we'll focus on that. Certain terms used in statutory definition of exchange under Section 3, Part A, 1 of the Securities Exchange Act of 1934, or the Exchange Act, to include systems that offer the use of non-firm trading interest and communication protocols. Protocols, right there. There it is. And protocols to bring together buyers and sellers of securities. But you're like, well, wait, they haven't, I think you want this. But wait, they haven't defined anything as a security yet. There you go. But they will. So they're going to lay this foundation first. So it's like slow, then all at once, right? And as we've seen over the last couple of years, it's like, look, if you can do something slow enough, then people will pretty much give away their freedoms over comforts. And yeah, it's just fucking tragedy to see. It really is. I guess it's just disappointing, right? And it's definitely not where I want to sit. Like in terms of like where I think of the story I want to tell my kids and where I want to sit as I'm reflecting back on my life and what side of history do I want to be on is like, we fucking have no choice on things like this. And so this is just another piece of a much bigger conversation that if you weren't being censored so bad on social media, there would have been way more people talking about. But believe me, censorship works because it creates self-censorship. So that's why they do it. And you would have had a lot more people talking about what went down over these last 2 years if they didn't do that shit. But the minute you say it, it's a strike. They'll take you down midstream. We've seen this. The minute you start talking about this shit, they'll take you down midstream. They got people watching these streams now. So they have analysts that work at YouTube and stuff watching these streams to make sure that the minute you fucking mention it, if there's too many viewers on your stream, done, gone. Okay, alternative trading systems, ATSs, to take into consideration systems that may fall within a definition of exchange. So they are going to say that because this, Block Explorer or Etherscan is documenting the transaction itself and showing the transaction, even though it's not the means of exchange of the transaction, but because you actually can interact with the smart contract on Etherscan, exchange. You see how simple that was? Like, I just summed it up in 2 minutes. So they're gonna bring that under the purview of the definition of an exchange. But you see, because what is an exchange? Right? So we have to go back and look at all of those things, right? Which they actually bring up right here, which is the first thing we covered. But in general, like you should know how they're defining that thing. All right. Eliminate the exemption from compliance with regulation ATS for an ATS that limits its securities activities to government securities or repurchase and reverse repurchase agreements on government securities and registers as a broker-dealer or is a bank. So again, this, like, they're putting it over here in this context of like term repo markets and stuff like that, which you're like, oh, that has nothing to do with crypto, so we're safe. But again, it's just further insulating like what they're trying to define as a security and how they want that security and seller or broker of security, aka exchange, to be in compliance with what they want under the ATS, right? All right, government securities ATS to disclose information about its manner of operations and the ATS-related activities of the registered broker-dealer or government securities broker of government security dealer that operates the ATS. Doesn't matter. That part like got muddied out, so that's why I stopped it right there. Okay, disclose information about its manner of operations. What do you think that might be? Customer list? On a blockchain, this would probably be to like subpoena full records of IP addresses or whatever that interacted with that account. Besides, obviously, like the blockchain itself is, it's fully there, free, public, so they could use that to cross-reference whatever additional data they can squeeze out of these brokers, which everyone will have to get registered now, and everyone will have to try and force you to comply and do KYC and AML, which we talked about this before. Like, this is all stuff from last year, right? This I thought was interesting. This is like a buckshot all the way at the end. But okay. In addition, the commission is proposing to amend the regulation ATS fair access rule. The commission is also proposing to require electronic filing of and to modernize Form ATS-R and Form ATS, which again, that's just trying to update forms and paperwork and bring it under one centralized means of tracking, which would require existing Form ATS filers to amend their existing disclosures. Further, the Commission is re-proposing amendments to Regulation Systems Compliance, RSC, and Integrity, Regulation SCI, to apply it to ATSs that meet certain volume thresholds in U.S. Treasury securities or agency securities. So, yeah, I mean, some of this has nothing to do with crypto, but a lot of it does. Like, because all we have to do now is redefine what fits under an alternative trading floor, an alternative trading platform, right, an ATS, and then we just need somebody else to come along and say, everything's a security now, ex facto, now it fits into the rule. Now it's under their purview. So that's it. Very frustrating to me. Got another piece that is not mine, but I realized I didn't link it there. This guy here, this was really well done. So this is LexNode, LEXNODE.substack.com. Like I said, everyone's got a fucking Substack now, but he actually breaks it down piece by piece. I mean, why bother? Like, do you really need somebody to break it down to you piece by piece? Like, we already see what the game is, right? We already see. So I was hoping actually more people would be on so we could have more interaction with the chat. What's up with you guys? How you doing today? We saw this coming in October. We've been covering it extensively on this channel ever since. And here it is. Okay, so here is Commissioner Pierce's commentary. I thought this was kind of funny. The proposal we are considering today is certainly not sloppy. I would argue 654 pages, 220 separate comment requests containing multiple questions. I would argue that is really sloppy. You know, it's like what's that saying? You know, you should be able to sell your business or your idea on a napkin, right? 650-page report. I mean, does anyone ever think about like all these reports and how many copies of these reports get made? Like, does a 654-page report get printed out for every single person at every single meeting about this shit? Like, how many copies of this gets made? Like, are we talking about environmental impact on anything like that, or no? Speaking of environmental impact, we're gonna cruise over to Twitter, which is the cesspool of cancer itself. I thought this was funny. Senator Warren targets 6 crypto miners questioning their energy use and environmental footprint. I mean, here we are, same shit. So it's like, it's going back to what I said, right? There's like this trap in social media where people are dumb and they're saying dumb shit and they know it and they're doing that, and you have to decide if you want to engage in that. So they're doing that on purpose. So I would say if it's something to where you can respond really quick, like most of the stuff I respond to is just really, really quick. Took no energy. It's not going to trigger me for the rest of the day. It's not gonna fuck my whole day up, right? By interacting with this piece of content. And then there is some stuff that would do that, and I try to avoid that because you're a net loser at that point. And I brought this up before, like, need to really change how you interact with some of this information because, like, if you're going to get all wrapped up in it and invest all this information, you're doing 2 things. One, you're validating the shitty idea by even responding. That's why I'll just like retweet it, because then I'm bringing that conversation to my people, right? Your people. And then so right out of the gates, you're validating their shitty idea, but you're never going to win. You're never going to win that. Like, you could go point by point. See, this is why they're a stupid fuck. Every single piece of data, it's not going to matter. Nobody cares, because in that pig pen, everyone's already rolling around in the mud and everyone's already made up their mind. Dog's going nuts. So it's like, what's the point of even doing that? And so you really just have a couple different options. Is like, you just call them a dumb fuck because they are and move on. Some sort of fast response, or just completely ignore it. Because linguistically, a lot of this stuff is framed to create that trigger, to create some sort of fear or panic in you, right? And that's really just a means of diversion and distraction so that you're not focused on what really matters. Stuff like what's going on right now is what really matters. Yeah, I agree, Joe. Dangerous. There's a lot of them, though. There's a lot of them. And it's like, Okay, how do you win that? Well, we can get all upset about it and talk about how the whole world's going to shit and everything's going to be bad, or we can do something about it. We can vote with our behavior, we can vote with our focus, we can vote with our dollars. Like, focus on what you can control. My thoughts and my actions. My thoughts and my actions are the two things I can control, yes? So, thoughts and actions. We can go down all kinds of rabbit holes about elitist this, and I don't know who came up with that name, but the powers that be and the elite families. Why? You're just going to get all fucking upset and mad, and then there's going to be no solution. There's going to be no solution in that. So solutions are to mobilize, to get loud in terms of when they open up things for commentary, do it. When you can vote and you can vote these people out, do it. When you can fund another alternative party or person within the broken party system, do it. Because there are a lot of really good people that are now getting involved in politics because they feel like they have no choice. They see what's happening and they want to do something about it. Whereas before, it's like you had nothing but really just career politicians, which were garbage fucking people who have made now tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars off your back and never really gave a fuck about you, never really wanted to roll out regulation to help protect you at all. It was about them extorting as much value and stealing as much value as they could from the system while you get fucked once again. That's really like the best summary of it. And that sounds really, really bad, but that is the truth, though, right? So anyway, you can get involved in so many different ways in these different pieces. But the biggest thing here is you can't win this argument by showing all the proof that's been circulated. So it's like, okay, how is this conversation? Because you got to ask yourself logically, how is this conversation still happening if all of this data is out there? How many times have we fucking debunked this with the energy usage, right? And so it's once again them saying oh yeah, look over here, this is the bad guy. But it's like, wait a second. When are we going to talk about lithium batteries? When are we going to talk about mining and the dangers and the fucking pollution that causes? We're over here talking about cow farts, fucking cow farts, and how to have the cows pee and poop into this thing to stop gases. Are you serious? I saw that on World Economic Forum last week. Some new technology that somebody invented to try and remove carbon emissions from cow piss and shit. Are you fucking kidding me? But yet, no talk about mining. No talk about oils, no talk about plastics, no talk about the Pacific garbage belt that exists, right? None of that. Why isn't that being discussed? Because they don't actually care. Do you get it? Because that has to be true. So when you have a piece of information that everybody knows, it's not that they don't know it too. Has to be, they don't care, right? The next logical thing is that they don't care. So yeah, you're definitely not going to win this in cryptocurrency by ignoring it, avoiding it, thinking that you're going to get some citizenship somewhere else and it's going to magically change everything. I mean, that might make the short term better, but I think in the long run is that countries are going to be lazy and adopt what a lot of other countries do. So if everyone just lets America do whatever they want, then a lot of other countries will just adopt a similar strategy, right? If we look. Well, let me stop sharing my screen for a second. I want to pull up this other email because I literally went from emailing yesterday talking about how El Salvador, is causing trouble, and the IMF is basically trying to tell them to stop, which publicly they're doing that, which proves that privately conversations haven't really worked. And we go from that, which is pure, hopium, to today, they're oh yeah, we're gonna shut the whole fucking thing down. Yeah, here was this piece right here. So the IMF board has already basically threatened funding. El Salvador, you're not gonna get any more funding if you keep doing this. And they said, okay, we don't care. And they keep buying Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is a global currency, is actually registered as a currency in a country. So the question you gotta ask yourself is, in a hyperinflationary environment like this, which is the next domino to fall? It's got to be a somewhere in the UAE, like a Kazakhstan or something like that. It's got to be a Europe that's not in the Union, another South American, maybe a Caribbean, or maybe a really progressive Asian. Doubt it. I mean, who in Asia would pick this up? Because there are, most of Asia is operating off of Chinese influence. So I don't really see that happening, but I definitely see another South American doing it. Africa is another place that would probably pick this up. And so what would happen if we got the next country and then now there's two? Well, the domino would fall much faster, because you got to remember the United States, look at what I've got on the bottom, that ticker. The US dollar is a fucking Ponzi scheme. I know that you don't like that. I know that that hurts. I know that you've spent your whole life believing that the US dollar or whatever fiat you got in your pocket is real money. It's not. It never has been. The average fiat currency lasts 27 years, the shortest being a month. Okay, so go back and look at history. History will tell you the truth. So there's something big that has to come out of all this. You know, we've got so much of the US dollar supply, 40% printed in the last 2 years. What are they going to do? Raise rates? So there's a rate hike scheduled now for March. Powell just talked about that yesterday. I think this is it right here. Yeah, interest rate hike coming in March, which will completely destroy the global debt numbers because it's going to all of a sudden make every single debt out there harder to service. They're fucked. We have negative real yield rates right now, which that's usually like bonds are supposed to be a safe haven, and right now they're -4. So for below zero, -4% returns on your bonds, which are sold as a safe haven, as a stable, predictable passive income, which is laughable, right? Russia openly considering accelerating its decision to ditch the US dollar in favor of its national currency. Just think if enough countries did this like in a week, the US dollar would be done because they printed too much of it. This would be the time for actually countries to strike. Like if countries hated America and hated the US dollar and wanted it gone as global reserve currency, now would be the time to strike. Stop using it cold turkey right now. And they know this. And then they'd have to roll out something else like the IMF's SDR that's been around since the 80s, or who knows, whoever's digital currency is closest to being done. Which, you know, the Fed coin, they said last year was 3 years away, 3 years from being ready, but I really doubt it. I really doubt it. Maybe that's a lie, and it's much closer. Oh, yeah. Okay. So one thing I was talking about yesterday is, and I do believe this, is, you know, Bitcoin is 13 years old. It runs in parallel, so it behaves similarly to the S&P 500 and NASDAQ 100. I don't think that's going to continue to stick because as people rush out of speculative assets, speculative risk assets like the stock market, there'll be a small amount of time where Bitcoin mirrors that behavior, and then I think people they'll be in running towards safe haven mode. And even though it probably doesn't deserve to be considered a store of value, it will be. And, you know, you could see some absolute insane upside targets for Bitcoin happen during a window like that, because you've basically got all these hyperinflationary pressures. You've got people just running to try and find some sort of safe haven. Metals will probably go absolutely apeshit. Maybe, you know, metals, have they ever actually gone apeshit? Not really. We're talking about like going from, you know, 1,000 to 1,800. We're not talking about going from 30,000 to 1,000,000. Right. So, I mean, different scale that we're talking about there. But, you know, you could definitely see some wild behavior happening with Bitcoin. Like, I think that's probably the only time or situation you would see $1 million Bitcoin is something like that. Is like all of a sudden all the dominoes are starting to fall. You have all these all these different countries starting to support it and have it be a reserve currency, have it be, you know, treated as a currency within the country. That's happening while simultaneously people are pulling out energy and value out of the US dollar countries, and speculative assets are still going down to, you know, going down, dumping. And then Bitcoin's kind of following that, but then Bitcoin kind of stops and decouples from that. And then it goes on its own journey and its own trajectory along with metals. Like, I think at that point it would run with metals, right? And commodities. So yeah, it is nutty, and like a lot of this is just fucking common sense. I don't know, but you got a lot of people acting like it's not, and they're just like, you know, trying to pretend that you're jumping to wild conclusions. You know, even with what we just decoded in their own languaging, which they love to make vague, by the way. Generalities and vagueness is the name of the game. Besides complexity, from the standpoint of if they pad this thing out to a 2,000-page report, how many are you gonna read this? Raise your hands. I can't see it, but raise your hands. Fucking nobody, dude. And they know that. So anyways, the summary is all you have to read, and you'll get the idea of the languaging. The ruling and the regulation around ATS, alternative trading systems, platforms, etc., is going to get extended. and it's not directly talking about DeFi, but it will encompass DeFi because now all they need to do after they pass this is, like I've said, come back with regulation about what is a security and what is not. They're going to throw all of DeFi stables in that because they want to get rid of stables. And or have just a couple that have gone through all the rigmarole that they require to get approved in the United States. And then they want to turn this into a fully doxed system. So just a bunch of CeFi's and get rid of DeFi completely, turn it into CeFi, but still call it DeFi. And that's it. Like that's what I think is kind of the end game with all of this. It's fucking unfortunate. We need more people, more crypto kids with money to start to do shit and get involved, right? I love that there's been renewed interest in Bitcoin. Like it really was like through 2019 through 2020, I feel like nobody really gave a fuck. You had a few loyalists and, you had your maximalists, which, they're just as toxic as somebody who's not a maximalist. But now what's been nice is like you had a big group, Max Kaiser, which that guy's an absolute nut job, but he was just down in El Salvador, and apparently there's other South American countries looking to do this. Like that's really what's needed right now, because I do believe that nationalizing Bitcoin would be a better hedge against hyperinflation than your own fiat currency. Like the fiat currencies themselves are not designed to last. They're not supposed to. So I do think that to fight hyperinflation, because you're not making this hyperinflation. This is another thing people don't understand. It's like El Salvador didn't make the hyperinflation. The fact that they used the dollar sucked them into the hyperinflation. They were going through their own journey with, COVID and all that, right? And trying to reopen their country and trying to fight all that. But it's not like South American countries, just like African countries, they didn't get anything for pokes. Like they didn't get any amount of shipments, like very few, right? Which is why I think it's less than 20% of Africa is vaxxed, because like they didn't want them to get it. You see? So they didn't get it. And they were selling it at top dollar in G countries. So why would they ever send it to a poor country, right? So anyways, IMF printed out record high amounts of money. Who knows how much? Actually, literally nobody knows how much the IMF and the BIS has given out since the pandemic, let's call it, happened. And so you've got all of this hyperinflation coming into your country that you're not really in control of in any way. You're just being pulled along and dragged into this fucking problem. And that's something, what I was saying is that people don't understand is that emerging markets get hit with inflation way worse than G countries. So you think it's bad in America, in countries in Asia, in countries throughout Africa, in countries throughout Europe that are not in the union and don't have all these perks and passes, they got hit with hyperinflation way worse. Like what they're seeing on the ground is completely destroying their fucking lives, because they're operating off of a tighter amount of money every single month versus you, and they don't have the same access as you in terms of getting work, getting jobs, etc. Right, in a G country, because the G countries are so well connected. There's not even internet in some of these places. How the fuck are they going to jump on Fiverr and do this? How are they going to go buy Bitcoin? How are they going to do any of this shit? They can't. So it comes back to a lot of what we talk about with the Mad Energy project. Is it's like the infrastructure is the most important, right? But anyway, so there's kind of my thesis on like how this might all go down, and like it would be the greatest rug pull fucking ever, because the US dollar would fall and there would be some wild shit that would happen with Bitcoin. But I do believe for an emerging market, it is a better hedge, better than metals, because metals are too hard to fucking get and there's too many games. And JP Morgan is really your daddy if you want to buy any amount of metals, even though they just paid $980 billion or million. Yeah, I think almost $1 billion in fees for 20 years of spoofing and cheating on their trading floor. It doesn't mean they stopped. Okay, so JP Morgan is your fucking daddy if you own metals at all, or trade metals. And so why do that when you can just literally own something that there's a true limited supply of, like Bitcoin? So from that standpoint, I think that would really be a lot of people's best option. And truly, like, yeah, I think a lot more people should be looking into something like Hex. I know a lot of you guys from the Hex community jump in on our streams, but 2 years, it's proven itself. It's paid out. It's done like, who knows how many X, what is it, 1 million X? So yeah, it's pretty powerful too. I think that governments should be looking at that, because It's just like any other system, any other structure, is that the more people that get involved in it, it makes it more legitimate. It raises the likelihood of something lasting, the more people that get involved. And that's true of any system or structure, right? So, yeah, I actually don't know what that is. I have no fucking idea what that is, but there's always stuff like this that there's always stuff like that like pops up in the comment section and stuff that's just like these weird Russian URLs. I'm not streaming on Twitch right now either because I wasn't in the mood for dumb fucks to jump into the stream. Because like how you do the categories on Twitch is like just chatting or something. So it's like you get all kinds of like just dumb shit. You know, give us upside target, tell us where to buy. You know, show us TA. Right, well, no. Okay. All right, cool. Inviting Freedom, what's up? Thanks for jumping in. Yeah, I would agree. Like people like to make this argument like, you know, yeah, you voted for him. You know, Trump would have been so much better right now. I think Trump started as a really great thing, and he ended as a terrible fucking catastrophe. That guy in his last couple of months was just, I don't even know what the fuck he was saying. Like he was sounding just like Biden. So, and I do believe that regardless of what they're saying and the actions, and you know, I fell into rabbit holes of the Q shit, and I was following along with that. And some of that was, I still can't even explain that to this day. The coincidences that weren't coincidence that was occurring, but like that guy was just not the guy to do it, clearly. And that's a shame because there's a lot of stuff that he was talking about that he, I think, maybe probably wanted to do, but at the end of the day, like they're all on the same team, right? No matter if you like that or not, they're all on the same fucking team. So you need to get somebody who, it's like two directions. We need to get people in politics who have so much money, fuck you amounts of money, that they just can't be bought. They don't care. They're loudmouths, which is what I feel I would be, is if I ever got involved in politics, and as long as I had probably over $500 million in assets, I would probably be that guy, to where I would just be everyone's fucking worst nightmare, right? Because the amount of confidence and belief you could build around yourself and around your mission and your purpose, and the purity that could be there with that, because you'd be so well insulated against a lot of the attacks, because we've seen the opposite of this, and we've seen so many different variations of this where, you know, somebody who just didn't quite have the financial support was able to be taken down, stories from the past ruined them, whatever, right? Like you need a guy who's pretty well insulated to where as these attacks start to happen, it doesn't actually matter, right? And I would argue that the only thing that went wrong, like if we use again Trump as an example, the only thing that went wrong there is that he didn't really have a media outlet that was behind him. So before he even got started, he probably should have bought a couple media outlets so that he could make sure that, you know, for every 20 pieces of dog shit that was getting published, he was able to, again, say, you know, use words and write them in a different way to, you know, hopefully help identify and clarify, you know, what happened with different things. But I don't know. I don't think that's all of it, but I do think that we should be getting involved with people who, you know, a lot of people who have served in the past, like these people who have this sense of purity to them, this dedication, this drive, this focus to them, and they're centralized around like this mission, this purpose. You know, that's the kind of people that you really want to get involved in. And everyone else, no, not really. Because here's what's happened with like 90% of these fucking people, is that like your Elizabeth Warrens, your fake Indians. She's 0.00001% Indian, right? But that got her into college. That got her a scholarship. And she was actually being paraded around as a fucking minority up until this whole thing went viral. And then they all removed it and they backtracked on all of it. The problem with this stupid fuck is that she came in broke. And she used this to steal money and siphon money from you by raising your taxes, by making rules for you when they don't live off of the same set of rules. So they are all getting involved in politics, and all of them, AOC, the Presley chick, Pelosi, all of them, right, left, you know, Crenshaw, they're all playing the same game, which is that they want to make fucking money off of being a politician. They want to be a career politician. And I'm sorry, but it's like, I think it was like an old Greek adage or something, which is like, those who should probably be leading never want to lead. And those who are leading, you should probably be worrisome of. because they're trying to lead and have a position of power for all the wrong reasons. So these people are just, mental health crisis on fucking steroids that have been given way too much power, that are stealing and siphoning money. They're making regulation that doesn't make sense. They don't care. They've got the broken ideas. Like I said, like these people need counselors. They need fucking psychiatric help. They don't need access to more money and more rules to, make your life worse. They don't need that. They don't need that. And even that's why, that's why so much of what we're doing, I feel, is important, right? Because even by us just talking about and really harping on the Federal Reserve and the fact that that's not a government entity, and that the money being printed because of the U.S. Treasury, which is a government entity, is lockstep, hand in hand with the Fed, who basically they're dictating to each other how this works. So that is the government working with a private entity to control printing of the fiat currency. Like if this was a cryptocurrency, people would rip this shit apart. They would call this what? Ponzi. They would be pointing out the clear bias. But yet, because it's the US dollar, like how many people in your timeline are pointing this out and talking about this? Right? Talking about these conflicts of interest. It's different. It's different when it's actually the same. So we like to pretend like it's different, but it's not. It's the same shit. So yeah. And what's even more interesting is the events right before because I'm sure you guys have read, who is it? Naomi Prinz. She did, I've got it on my bookshelf, so I'm looking. It Takes a Pillage. She did another book talking about how the Fed was created. But the thing that I don't remember, I don't think she covered in that book, was the connections to the Titanic, which the Titanic happened and crashed and everyone fucking died with 3 big players who are opposed to the Federal Reserve just before that occurred. One of them being the Astor family, which was the wealthiest family on the fucking planet at the time. Joseph Astor died on that, and he was strongly against the Federal Reserve. J.P. Morgan was supposed to be on that trip, pulled out at the last minute. Sound familiar? He got a $5 million insurance fund within 1 week. Everyone else, the families, had to wait 4 years, 4 fucking years to get their payout. You know what their payout was? $423 per person on average for their insurance money. For their dead family. $400 fucking dollars. That guy got $5 million. So he got his money back, boom, 1 week. Doubled his insurance the week, 2 weeks before it happened. What's that sound like? Sound like 9/11, don't it? You see what I'm saying? Like, this shit is easy to piece together if you just follow the data, right? And see what that's showing you. Like, I remember there's a time, like even go back like 3 years. If I was talking the shit I'm talking right now, be laughed at, right? Be absolutely laughed at. Yeah, and I agree. This is why I think, like, everyone is like, oh, just go back to gold back standard. It's like, no, I don't agree. Let's bring down the screen. I forgot I could do this. Those things were still happening back then. So that clearly wasn't the answer either back then. And then we moved to essentially just a debt-based system, right? Which is a promise of a promise is what we're in now. Because treasuries are being issued to prop up currencies, right? So currencies are issued over the top of a treasury note. So a promise on top of a promise to get the value out of this paper. Yeah, there's a lot of bank collapses back there. And you can go back and look at historical data. You can look at inflation rates during these times. You can look at stock market. You can kind of start to layer these things over the top of each other. And things really started, inflation really went nuts at the tail end of the 70s, going into the 80s, which is interesting how that coincides with the gold back standard being dropped in 72. So you can start to like map these things out and like, okay, so this piece went up, this piece went down. So what does that mean? And yeah, you can start to make some thesis for sure. But I would agree with you. I don't think that it's really that simple. I didn't catch Will's stream. I saw, I think, like a couple minutes of it, and I was like, well, good. He's right at the forefront of breaking this stuff and breaking this news. And then I pushed out this email this morning. Well, it's my morning, you guys' nighttime, or the other one that I was just showing you. And then, yeah, now we're on stream because I just feel like this shit is important, man. And there's like all kinds of drama happening in crypto Twitter with like another DeFi project that's connected to the the failed Canadian exchange, and everyone's focused on that. And the U.S. dollar tether peg broke slightly for like a couple hours or something, which doesn't happen that often. And everyone's talking about that shit, and nobody's really talking about this. So this is important stuff. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would agree with this. Crypto developer community all seems to want their own piece of the limelight, strong breakthroughs on a common goal. There needs to be a common goal. So for as much as it's like, yay, decentralization, yes, it kind of needs centralized aspects though. You know, centralized aspects do work. And especially with like right now, to centralize now and to consolidate now, to fight this, to have a common front is not a bad thing, because later you can just separate again. Now again, you'll have all kinds of problems that you deal with then, because people that have newfound power, maybe they weren't the right people, and all kinds of other dramas like that. But I'm just saying, like, you know, in theory, like that could work just fine. And go through times of like, you know, coming together, going apart, coming together, going apart, right? Okay. Yeah, cool. Anyways, I think that's it, man. We ran the point home. I mean, I could have shot this in like a 20-minute video, but I wanted to interact with you guys, interact with the community, and say what's up. Oh, interesting. Yeah, we probably should, Joe. That'd probably be good. We'll probably catch up on that maybe the next macro show that we do. There's not a lot of macro stuff happening, and this is probably the extent of it right here. Just the Powell was like wishy-washy, not confident at all. Says that there's still basically a huge amount of risk on the table. And instead of like lying and just taking a stance on, you know, bullish or bearish, she was kind of floating in the middle, which sent mixed messages to the market. It's kind of weird how we all do this, though, isn't it? It's kind of weird how like everyone's just waiting around like, oh, what Jerome Powell say? It's like, should you care? And the only reason, like, let's admit it, the only reason why you have to care is because everyone else thinks that this matters, and so that moves markets. Whereas if nobody gave a fuck about this, nobody would give a fuck about this, right? Anyways, something that I thought was interesting is a lot of people are, yeah, cool. I appreciate you tuning into the emails. I mean, I've been writing emails for almost 3 years now. I've done over 500 Empire alerts, which are like macro-based emails, and we're almost at 50 on the crypto side. And I just started that maybe not even a year ago, I think. So anyways, back to my point is, okay, inflation. The federal mandate is supposed to be 2%, right? But 2% is reducing your purchasing power by over 30%. I misquoted. I said it on Effin Hangout last week. I said 36%. I was wrong. It's 32.6%. So 32.6% dilution on your money over 20 years at a 2% inflation. At 5% inflation, it's 60%. So somebody presented this. What if we see 4 years of 10% inflation? It doesn't matter. What if you see 1 year of 10% and then it goes right back down to 2? You still now changed that equation. That equation is thrown off. And so the amount of purchasing power that you're losing is greater. So every minute, every day that inflation, it even exists, you're losing more and more money. That's why it's called the hidden tax, because nobody's really paying attention to inflation. Nobody really actually, a lot of people pretend like they understand what inflation means. Maybe they actually do, but I don't know. I don't see anyone getting upset about it. I don't see anyone like, doing anything about it. And I remember like, there's a story I read a while back where this guy like took, back in the 80s, like took hostages and shit over inflation. And he like ended up killing himself over inflation. Like he was trying to like, he was taking a stand, and that was his hill. His hill was like, yo, inflation is fucked up. And it's like, you don't really hear it being discussed like that nowadays. It's just like, 7%, it could be worse. What? It's like 7% is a massive fucking dilution on your purchasing power. How is that okay? Okay, so the question becomes is, over a 20-year span or over the next 2 years, because we're at 7% right now. Let's say that stays like this and we get 1 year of 7%. How are you outweighing that? What is your strategy with your portfolio, with your money to come out ahead on that? Most people don't have one. They don't have one. So I think back in like, I think it's 2017, maybe 2018, you needed like 3 or 4 times X your money to retire. I think it's probably more like 5 to 7X your money you would need now to retire, to just outpace all this shit that's right in front of you that we're talking about so openly right now. Wild, right? Yeah, so we should probably talk about that because the FinCEN stuff I haven't been paying attention to, and he's definitely more in tune with that, with everything that they're doing with the trust right now. So cool. Well, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Questions for me? Any hot takes you guys got? Anything I'm missing? But yeah, there it is. Also, too, if you want to follow along, this is completely free. bullrunforever.substack.com. I'm still blown away that I got that URL basically. But yeah, and the newest email is the one that we published earlier today, which is breaking down essentially this and the summary and how they're going to probably dovetail that into now cryptos just need to be thrown into a securities basket. Maybe Bitcoin and ETH won't, like they've been talking about. They've been saying that those are safe. They won't be. But if he comes out with an executive order and frames it as national security, everything's on the table again. They can do whatever the fuck they want. But under national security, they could ban it all. Right? They could ban it all immediately. So, yeah, wild, man. Absolute wildness. Yeah, and that's a big shame of it too. Is like, people. I think a lot of times people don't realize just how far they've strayed away from their true self and themselves by headlines and media and news and all of this shit, which are these narratives. They're these sentences and these words that are affecting people, and they don't realize it. And it's like it's hard to like now years later look back and be like, wow, man, I fucking changed a lot, right? And I don't like how I've changed. It takes a very brave person to look in the mirror and look back on their timeline and see like how they've diverted, and now they're like this completely different person. And a lot of it is shaped by narrative, and that narrative is ruled and controlled by a select few people, and the masses are definitely influenced by that 100%. So I agree with you. Yeah, they don't really understand inflation, how that affects them, and obviously we're not taught about this stuff, not educated about it. You're not educated about credit. You're not educated about personal finance. You're not educated about any of this. So anyway, that is part of the game. And so to transcend the game, like a lot of people have, this community seems to be filled with people who've transcended these illusions. Well, now we get to talk and poke fun and get together and figure out how we can do it differently, right? Yes, it is. That is a lot of tabs. I am actually the tab ninja, so you can go and try and figure out what all of them are. I'll give you a minute. Yeah, I'm essentially a tab master. You cannot defeat me with tabs. Okay. Yeah, it totally is. It totally is. Yeah, national security. It's like, and let's cover the Ukraine thing for a second. I'll summarize this for you in 2 minutes. Okay, all the shit that on Biden's laptop, all that was true. There it is. There's your answer. Well, why do you say that? Well, it has to be true, because why are we so interested in Ukraine? Ukraine is nothing burger. There's nothing going on over there. But if I turn on CNN, well, this just ties into the Russiagate that they played for 4 fucking years straight. So you see, like that's an example of it. That's an entire ecosystem now feeding itself and eating just lies. None of that's true. What is true though is that the laptop that they all told us did matter, and the ties and the business deals. So here's the deeper reason. They've got assets. They've now got money invested in that country. They now are on the hook because they have to be. Just like they would be in China. If anything happened with China, they'd have to be on the hook, even though they're taking a tight stance on the Taiwan deal. They have to care about Ukraine because they've got assets there, they've got money invested, they've got dirty deals, they got paperwork, they've got an entire trail of shit that they do not want Putin to get his hands on. So now they have to go to war. They have to defend it. It's just stupid. And none of that would matter if you just had people who are more fucking honest in office, man. Just stop fucking lying about everything. Like, how do these people even fucking live with themselves? I don't know. Maybe they're not human, but they fucking lie about everything, dude. It's disgusting. Yeah. Yeah, it's just a cash in deal for Hunter, like they got money over there, they got deals, they have to defend this now. They have to. They're brought into the deal on blood. So Oh, and this is icing on a cake. Great point. This is just icing on a cake, though. Like they got to worry about the assets and the deals and the infrastructure and everything that they're trying to build out and make money off of over there. But on top of that, then they'll position their people with the security contracts and things like that. You know, these black groups, off the book groups. They'll push them in there for sure, and they'll get a cut off of that. So you see, like it just keeps going round and round and round and round. The game of lies, deceit, cheating, stealing from you, while you shut up and pay your taxes, right? So it's an interesting model. I definitely would say it's got to change. It's got to change. Don't burn the whole thing down because I think that'd be harder to rebuild. But get in, infiltrate, and do right by what the original Constitution was all about. You know, the Constitution, I feel like, is one of the only truthful fucking papers that exists on this planet. And I don't think it was written by us, or it was written by us when we were much fucking smarter, you know, thousands of years ago. But to think that these guys came together and drafted this, no, I don't think so. I think those are just like names assigned to something, just like you see statues and, you know, this guy was a builder and an architect in early 1800s, and the style of buildings that we used to have back then versus now, like all of that is just names assigned to shit that they already rediscovered that was already here. So it's the same thing with, I believe, the Constitution. The Constitution was already written. It was already here. We just repurposed it, put some new names on it, took some pictures of some guys who the fuck knows who they actually were, and then boom, there it is, rolled out to you as fake history. Throw it in a book, print it, teach it in schools. Now it's the truth, right? It's that simple. Yeah, DNC. See, I mean, you guys got even more intel than me on this shit. But I mean, at the general, you know, the general 40,000 foot view, like they have to get involved. So that's how you know they will. They got no fucking choice. So they're going to drag everyone into that now. For what? For why? Why do we have to pay for that in any sort of capacity? People got to ask these questions more, you know? You got to ask this shit. Why am I getting involved with shit that I don't believe in for people who claim that they represent me, claim that they represent my country, but yet have no fundamental understanding of what the paper and the oath that they took means? Why? Why? Yeah, the crack top. That's funny. And left top. I mean, think about what that guy got away with. Holy shit, dude. Like, rules for us, but not for them, right? I mean, that guy is busted in photos with the paraphernalia. He was doing it in the videos. And just imagine if that happened to you or me, or somebody in the crypto space or something. They'd be wrecked, destroyed. They would be eaten fucking alive and never be able to show their face again. Cancel culture would just wrap their tentacles around it and they'd be done. But if you're that guy, it's fake. It's fake. None of that mattered, right? The weird shit with Obama's fake daughters. Fuck, man, I could go on for days with that. Anyway, enough of that. So this is what we're up against. There needs to be a unified front. There, of course, is not. So we're up for a turbulent 2022. I will give you that. Between inflation and raising of rates, what's going to happen with the stock market, what's going to happen with cryptocurrencies. I think you're pretty well positioned if you've already got your plan. I know a lot of you already do. And if you don't, then you need to get a plan really, really quick. So that's all I got for you. Last questions in the chat before we take off for the day. Because this is my morning, so I got a shitload of stuff to do. I just wanted to jump in and say hi and explain all this. So yeah, bullrunforever.substack.com is free, or empirealerts.substack.com. That's paid, but yeah, don't worry about that. I'm not looking for your money. Okay, cool, guys. Thanks for jumping on. We usually do Thursdays at a different time, so I just wanted to jump on because this is kind of an emergency broadcast. We're going to get back to our regular scheduled time next week, and we'll probably do some sort of macro show around the end of the month because we're just about at the end of the month, so we should see a lot more data dropping. So expect a Wales and myself macro show pretty soon as well. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Share this, like this, comment, all that fun stuff to help us get more people back to the channel. Thank you. See you again real soon.